Well, good evening from Downing Street, where the Prime Minister is back behind that famous black door, planning for a general election that we now know will be on December the 12th. MPs finally agreed the date this evening. The House of Lords is expected to rubber stamp it tomorrow. A Labour amendment to hold it on the 9th was defeated. So Boris Johnson has got the Christmas election he hopes will give him the majority he needs to end the Brexit deadlock. Other party leaders see it differently, of course. Tonight, Jeremy Corbyn is all for an election, a chance for once-in-a-generation change, he said. For the Liberal Democrats, Jo Swinson, it is, she said, a chance to stop Brexit. And so it begins.
Would it be fourth time lucky for Boris Johnson as he tried again to secure MPs' backing for a general election?
The ayes to the right, 438. The noes to the left, 20.
Yep, he finally got it by a landslide. But in the end, it was all down to him, Labour's leader Jeremy Corbyn, who'd been desperately reluctant to allow Johnson to go to the country till this morning.
Thank you very much, guys. We're now going to be out on the streets for about 6 weeks. It's going to be fun, and I've just had a weather forecast. It's going to be good weather.
Now, it'll have surprised literally no one why Johnson wants this election, even in the possible damp and gloom of December.
There is only one way to get Brexit done in the face of this unrelenting parliamentary obstructionism, this endless, willful, fingers crossed, not me, gov refusal to deliver on the mandate of the people, and that is, Mr. Speaker, to refresh this Parliament and give the people a choice.
But what was striking was how Jeremy Corbyn's own MPs, like Paul Farrelly, thought their leader was making a mistake.
I've said consistently, when no deal is off the table, we will back an election. Today, after much denial and much bluster by the Prime Minister, that deal is officially off the table. So this country can vote for the government that it deserves.
Yes. I shall be voting against an early election today and encourage as many of my colleagues as possible to defy the threats and blandishments to do so.
And a former Tory minister made clear that on Boris Johnson's side of the House too, not everyone wants an election.
Surely a referendum on whether that proceeds or not actually does give a very definitive outcome, and perhaps if the House had allowed the British public a vote on the previous Prime Minister's deal, we could have had a definitive outcome many, many months ago.
And perhaps this Labour MP best captured the mood of the less partisan.
I will gladly go back and sleep in my own bed for a solid 6 weeks and see my children every day and join the camaraderie of the hundreds and hundreds of volunteers that will join me in my seat as they do every time we have an election. But what happens next is the question nobody can answer, and until that is the case, the one-line bill is useless.
Now, some would say it was the Scottish National Party and the Lib Dems led by Jo Swinson who were the real architects of the coming election, because on Saturday they said, when Labour wouldn't, that they're up for it.
I am standing in this election as candidate to be Prime Minister and build a brighter future for our country. The first thing we will do is stop Brexit.
Her cunning plan is to join forces with other anti-Brexit parties.
We will have those discussions. They have been ongoing and they will clearly be accelerated.
The mood I'm getting on the doorsteps already is that the people of Scotland want to remain in the EU and that they support and trust that the SNP will do everything that we can to ensure that we realise that.
Boris Johnson sneaking out after doing something almost unique in his 100-odd days as Prime Minister, winning a vote that actually matters to him. And he showed mercy to 10 MPs who he expelled for forcing a Brexit delay on him by welcoming them back to the Tory fold. Back home tonight to plot how to win the votes that really, really count. Ours on the 12th of December.
And as you can see, Robert has joined me. So it's hard to overstate what a gamble this is for Boris Johnson. We were supposed to be 48 hours out of Brexit on this coming Thursday, and now we're staring at a general election.
Yeah, I mean, look, there plainly are risks, but the Tory party is something like 10 points ahead in the polls, although it has to be said the polls are, as they have been for the last few years, somewhat all over the place, and Boris Johnson's pro-Brexit stance will alienate voters in Scotland and much of London. He'll lose some seats, but he is hoping to make big gains in the northeast and the northwest, particularly among Labour supporters who want Brexit. What I would say, however, is that probably for him there is no better, or is likely to be no better time to go to the country. He needs an election. He can't govern at the moment. I mean, he's actually got a deficit rather than a majority in Parliament. And his calculation is that if he appeals to voters to deliver Brexit, that is a far better platform for him than appealing to them to judge the Tories on their domestic record, because, you know, the years of austerity mean that lots of voters prefer what Labour has to say about schools and hospitals. So, yes, you are right that it is a very big gamble, but he has to gamble sometime, and maybe this is his best moment.
OK, we'll be back with you a little later on in the programme, Robert, for the moment. Thank you very much indeed for that. Well, back to the other big showdown that's looming and what tomorrow's newspaper front pages are making of it all. The Eye says the countdown begins for a Christmas election after opposition parties swung behind the Prime Minister's preferred date of December the 12th. The Guardian says Parliament has finally managed to break the deadlock over Brexit by agreeing a date after Jeremy Corbyn took a gamble to back Mr Johnson's choice. And the Telegraph shows Mr Corbyn and his shadow cabinet. It also says Mr Corbyn's decision to back December the 12th has helped to break the impasse that has crippled British politics. Now for his headlines tonight. Robert's back. It's hard to say how big this election is, how unpredictable it is likely to be. What sort of campaign are you anticipating?
Well, many MPs fear that it will be the angriest, perhaps the most unpleasant on record. Women MPs in particular have told me they've been warned by police security officers that they should not go out campaigning town centres without significant protection. And actually the police have also said to me that there will be a heavy security presence throughout. When on the issues, Labour will try and focus on schools and hospitals, but it will mostly be about Brexit. You have a pretty divided opposition. You have the Lib Dems, Plaid Cymru, SNP, Greens, all in favour of staying in the EU. You have Labour in favour of a referendum, but not saying whether it wants to remain or leave. And then you have Tories, the man in there, saying that what he wants is to get his deal passed. And there, of course, is the rub. All the headlines are talking about breaking the Brexit impasse, but actually we could be here again on December the 12th, the morning of December the 13th, with another hung Parliament, and actually still no wiser about when or whether we are leaving the EU. So it breaks some kind of impasse, but whether it solves Brexit, well, we'll know in a few weeks' time.
OK, so we go straight from Halloween to Friday the 13th, somebody was saying earlier. What a thought. Robert, thank you very much indeed.